Hi, my name is Andrew McLaren. Today we're going to talk about the NGSS and the dangers of following it a little bit too close with the particular performance expectations. Now, I still think that we should do that, but there's something to keep in mind. I've been involved in curriculum adoption, and I talked to someone who actually was involved in writing the NGSS. And the core of the NGSS is that each practice and cross-cutting concept is taught at each grade level. And that doesn't mean that you have to teach the individual performance expectations exactly, but they are really, really good ways of accounting for all these different things and trying to make sure all the teachers are doing similar things and that those practices really are being taught at each grade level. Because if you end up just cutting the content from a practice, you may find that you end up overusing one practice and not using the others. So if you look in like Appendix K of the NGSS, so if you look how the NGSS actually splits these practices up throughout the years, they aren't always evenly split, and they even don't do much of showing you how where the practices are in these larger structures. They are fairly evenly split, but I remember for me, like seventh grade had quite a bit of modeling in it. And then I didn't do a lot of that like in sixth grade. And I believe that was like with the California model, which you can kind of see here. They don't label the practices in this table, but I've done that work with some districts. Unfortunately, I don't have access to those documents, but you would see that it was fairly evenly split. So, but some grades had more of one practice and other grades had more of a different practice. So you might be doing more of the like mathematical thinking and computational thinking at like higher grade levels. That's oftentimes what they do with a lot of these standards is that the harder stuff mathematically would be later on, which is fine. But you might argue that it'd be good if each eight of these practices was evenly emphasized in each grade level. So the potential downfall of following these performance expectations is that they might go really heavy with one practice one year and really light on another year. And we want to be supporting these skills throughout all of these years. And that can be a little bit difficult if you don't get much time for, let's say, engaging in arguments from evidence. So if that's only done really in one class in middle school, then students are not going to be very strong at that. So we want to make sure that we're really still hitting all these practices, even if that grade level is a little bit light on it. So that's why people will sometimes do more of like a free flow kind of interpretation of the NGSS, um, mostly so that they can actually cover some of these practices that might be a little bit light in their grade level. So we have to be very careful though about this mentality, because when we're doing this, when we're saying, "Oh, well, I don't want to teach that practice. I'm going to do this how I've done it before." Um, this is oftentimes just how teachers are like, "Oh, I've got a really good lesson. It actually uses modeling here, so we're not going to do like a research project, or we're not going to conduct an investigation." Like MSLS 1-1 is all about conducting investigations to prove living things are made of cells. A lot of teachers just tell kids that things are made of cells. They need to investigate that. So when we make this like professional decision to do things a little bit differently, it may be just us doing what's convenient. So we got to be very careful about that. Um, but in general, as long as all these practices are being taught, that is the spirit of the NGSS. As long as kids are able to do all those eight skills by the end of like middle school or high school at like a different, better level, that is really the core of what they're trying to do with this. So the importance of having these particular performance expectations lining up is kind of a secondary goal of the NGSS. But for me, I've always viewed that as like very, very important to stick to those and try and do as good of a job as I can to stick to them. But and that also helps us with fidelity if we're trying to measure a particular performance expectation. We do need to keep that practice present in that, or else we're not measuring all three dimensions. We're only measuring like the content. So we need to be careful about how we're assessing things to reflect these three dimensions, but also be aware that sometimes you might have actually mismatched and not done that practice there. Um, So it's kind of like a weird middle ground where I found myself leaning towards still being very like strictly following the performance expectations. But it's also okay for other people to be a little bit more free flowing with it as long as they're really like going back and auditing their year and making sure, did I really do a good job? Did I give students a research project this year? That's like one of the big things for me is that in science, a lot of teachers they do no research project. And that's a big part of one of our practices around here. I think it's obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. So like they have to be able to get good sources from good databases and tell us why those sources are good, right? So this is all coming together, hopefully, so that students get a well-rounded education. And if we're strictly following the NGSS, we'll get close to that at least. Thank you for McLearning with me. Before you go, please check out the following services that I offer with my business. So if you click the link in my videos, this goes to my website. I might be changing it from Podia because I'm no longer doing the interactive videos for sale. I might put those up for free. But most of my other services are linked here. So you can see that I've got like a Teachers Pay Teachers and a Wyzant. The Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of my assessments that I have for like the NGSS, as well as lessons that I made when I was actually a teacher in the classroom. So I've got quite a few things like CERs and other things on there. If you want to get one-on-one live support from me, either like with science or like working on like teaching support lessons and that kind of stuff, you can sign up through Wyzant. I have a link to there where you can contact me there, and we can schedule hourly appointments. And I've got a few other things on here like a Facebook page and our social media. And if you're interested in getting professional development with me for like a team of teachers, a whole page with information on that. So yeah, feel free to check that out. Thank you.